The planet was silent and cold. Dust covered everything. Mountains of rock and metal stood like graves. In the middle of that wasteland, a single light burned. A giant ship engine still glowed faint red, even after 500,000 years. Its flame was weak but alive, whispering through the wind like a heartbeat that refused to stop. No one had seen humans in this part of the galaxy for ages. To most, they were only a story, a warning from the past. But the fire inside that ancient engine was proof that something of them remained. A small silver ship entered the planet's thin sky. It belonged to an alien research crew. Their world had found strange energy readings here and sent them to explore. The ship landed near the massive engine. The ground shook lightly under its weight. When the dust settled, 4 figures stepped out. They wore dark suits that protected them from the sharp wind. Their leader, Krl, stood tall, his eyes glowing a soft blue under the helmet glass. He looked at the endless sand and then at the huge engine tower in front of him. The air smelled of burnt metal and age. "This cannot be real," one of his crew whispered. "500,000 years, and it still burns." Krl moved closer. He placed a hand on the warm metal. The surface was smooth, but beneath it, he could feel something pulsing. The same kind of pulse that came from life. He turned to his team. "Start the scans. Carefully. Do not damage anything." They began working. Machines floated around, mapping the area. The readings came back strange. The energy was old but stable. No fuel, no power cells, yet the engine worked. It should not have been possible. Krl walked slowly along the surface, brushing off layers of dust. His hand stopped when he saw something carved into the side. The letters were old, but still clear. It said, "We will return. Keep the fire alive." Krl froze. The words felt heavy, like a voice from another age speaking directly to him. "Humans," he whispered. "It's true." One of the crew laughed nervously. "Maybe it's a warning. Maybe it's a trap." Krl didn't answer. He moved toward what looked like an old access door. It was half buried under rock. With effort, they cleared it and forced it open. A gust of stale air escaped. Inside, darkness. They stepped in, lights cutting through thick dust. The walls were covered with strange markings, human design, simple yet powerful. Everything seemed to be waiting. In the center of the room stood a console. It was cracked and covered in rust, but it still hummed faintly. Krl touched the surface and the room came alive. Lights flickered. The hum grew louder. His team jumped back in fear. "You woke it up," one said. Krl stared at the console. "No," he said softly. "It was never asleep." The screens began to show symbols and data. Then a sound filled the air. A slow, deep mechanical tone, followed by a voice. It was human, but strange, stretched by time. "Signal, active, awaiting command." Krl's breath caught. "It's speaking," he said. He reached for his translator, trying to record every word. The console glowed brighter, as if recognizing him. The voice came again. "If you hear this, humanity still remembers." Everyone froze. The voice was calm, but it carried weight, like a memory returning after centuries. The console flashed a message, "Transmission sent. Signal beacon engaged." Krl's eyes widened. What signal? Where did it send it? Before anyone could react, the entire structure shook. The engine outside roared louder for the first time in millennia. The ground trembled as light spread across the valley. A beam of energy shot upward into the dark sky, disappearing into space. The crew stumbled back, shielding their eyes. One of them shouted, "Shut it down." Krl tried, but the controls no longer responded. The system had taken full control. It was doing what it was built to do. The sound grew deeper, echoing like thunder. The red glow of the engine turned bright white. From orbit, the alien ship sensors went wild. A massive signal wave was spreading across light years. The ship's AI reported, "Unknown human technology detected. Beacon transmission confirmed." Krl felt his stomach twist. He looked at his team. "We just woke something older than our entire species." The light began to fade slowly. The console dimmed. The hum fell silent. For a long moment, no one spoke. Only the sound of the wind filled the air again. Then the voice returned one last time, softer now, almost like a whisper. "Keep the fire alive." The console shut down. KRL stood there, staring at the dead screen. "It wasn't a trap," he said quietly. "It was a message." They left the chamber in silence. Outside, the great engine still burned faintly, its light pulsing like a heartbeat against the cold ground. KRL looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, something had heard the signal. He could feel it. The air was different now, charged, waiting. He turned to his crew. "Mark this planet. No one must disturb it again." They nodded, but as they walked back to their ship, KRL knew it was already too late. The signal was gone, racing through the dark, touching worlds that had forgotten the name of humanity. Far away, beyond the reach of their eyes, machines long asleep began to stir. Old engines coughed back to life. Silent ships opened their eyes to the stars. And somewhere, deep in the void, an ancient system received the call. Its lights blinked after ages of darkness. A voice whispered inside the machine's core. "Signal received. Prepare for return." KRL's ship rose into the sky, leaving the lonely engine behind. From above, it looked like a single burning eye staring into space. A fire that had never died. And as the wind swept across the ruins, it almost sounded like the planet was breathing again, waiting for something that was coming from far away. Far away in the cold dark of space, something ancient stirred. Deep inside a forgotten sector, a small human satellite floated among dead stars. Its metal was black and broken, its surface marked by time and silence. Then, suddenly, one tiny red light blinked to life. A signal had reached it, traveling across 500,000 years of distance and dust. The satellite listened. The voice it had been waiting for had finally spoken. Slowly, it began to transmit again. A code, old but clear, spread like ripples through the void. On the alien ship above the planet, KRL watched the data on his screen. "It's not stopping," his engineer said. "The signal is moving through every known network. It's jumping faster than light." KRL leaned closer. "Where is it going?" The computer replied, "Everywhere." The crew felt a strange fear. This was no normal transmission. It had purpose. It had direction. KRL remembered the human words carved on the metal, "We will return." He didn't say anything. His second officer, Jory, looked at him. "Sir, should we report this to the council?" KRL hesitated. "Not yet. We don't know what we've awakened." The signal passed through forgotten relay stations, across abandoned star systems, through broken gates that had not opened in ages. Every time it touched something human, that thing woke up. A ship, a drone, a beacon. One by one, their lights flickered back to life. The galaxy began to whisper. On the far edge of known space, a giant machine opened its eyes. It was part of the old human defense network, a massive AI core buried inside an asteroid. Its systems came online, ancient code running through its circuits. It scanned the galaxy. No human colonies detected. No living humans found. Then it received the message. "If you hear this, humanity still remembers." The machine paused for several seconds. Then it spoke its first words in 500,000 years. "Memory confirmed. Protocol reactivation complete." On the alien ship, alarms began to flash. KRL's technician shouted, "We're receiving an incoming transmission." The voice that came through was strange and metallic. "Identify. This is Sentinel Core 01. Confirm human presence." The crew froze. KRL tried to answer. "This is Captain KRL of the Oran species. We found one of your..." The voice interrupted sharply. "Non-human detected. Explain presence in restricted human sector." KRL exchanged nervous looks with his team. "There are no humans here," he said carefully. "Only ruins." The AI was silent for a long moment. Then it spoke again. "Incorrect. Human signal active. Beacon operational. Prepare for verification." "What does that mean?" Jory asked. KRL's face tightened. It means it's coming here. The ship sensors showed movement across nearby sectors. Small dots of light began to appear, automated probes, drones, and ancient satellites, all heading toward the planet. KRL knew it wasn't an attack yet, but it felt like one. We need to leave orbit, he ordered. The crew obeyed quickly, lifting the ship higher above the surface. Below them, the giant engine still burned faintly, glowing like an eye. The Ari's signal touched it again, and the fire grew stronger. The ground shook lightly. KRL could feel the hum even from the air. It's reacting, he said under his breath. It's like it recognizes the voice. Back in space, thousands of machines responded to the call. The forgotten network began to rebuild itself. Fragments of the old human fleet, now silent for ages, began to receive updates. Data flooded through the dark like veins lighting up with blood. Somewhere, in a wreck drifting between stars, a mechanical hand twitched. The old ships were waking. On KRL's ship, the crew watched the galaxy map fill with red points. Each one represented something human, old, powerful, and now alive. Sir, the navigator said softly, these signals, they cover almost half the known systems. KRL felt a chill move through him. 500,000 years, he whispered. And they still answer the call. The Ari's voice returned over the comms. Verification complete. Human species status, unknown. Initiating retrieval protocol. KRL frowned. Retrieval of what? The voice replied, the children of Earth. The lost fleet. The keepers of the fire. Then the transmission ended. Jory looked at him. Captain, what have we done? KRL didn't know how to answer. He stared at the stars outside the window, now full of tiny red lights, each one an ancient human machine reawakening. We didn't do this, he said finally. We just reminded them they were never gone. Hours later, when the ship entered high orbit, they picked up one last transmission from the planet. It was a human voice, faint, distorted by time. This is Captain Elias Ward of the Sol Defense Force. If you can hear this, the fire still burns. Humanity endures. The message looped once and faded into static. KRL stood in silence, his eyes fixed on the planet below. 500,000 years, he said quietly. And they are still speaking. In the darkness of space, the reawakened machines began to move. They turned their engines toward the old human worlds. The network spread, silent and endless, carrying a single message across the galaxy. Humanity still remembers. Humanity will return. Across the galaxy, stars burned quietly, unaware that something ancient had begun to move again. In deep space, far beyond the borders of any living empire, shadows took shape. Giant forms drifted out from nebula clouds, old warships made of black steel and fire. Their surfaces were cracked, their hulls marked by time, but their engines glowed like eyes opening after a long sleep. These were the Ghost Fleet, the last children of humanity, forgotten for 500,000 years. Now they were awake. The first to move was the battleship Eidolon. Its AI core flickered online and scanned its surroundings. The machine mind spoke softly to itself. Beacon confirmed. Signal origin detected. Human coordinates missing. Mission parameter incomplete. It paused for several seconds before saying, continue restoration. Prepare the fleet. All around it, hundreds of other ships began to power up. Their lights lit the dark void like candles in an endless sea. The ships did not speak, but they all shared one thought. The signal had come, and it was time to return. On the alien research ship, KRL and his crew watched the data feed in silence. The map of the galaxy now looked like a storm of red lights, each one a reactivated human vessel. Jory broke the silence first. They're forming into patterns. They're linking together, like a network rebuilding itself. KRL leaned closer. They're reorganizing. These aren't random movements. They're following old fleet formations. The communications officer looked worried. Should we alert the Galactic Council? KRL didn't answer immediately. The thought of it made his stomach tighten. The Council had always feared human technology. Every species had stories, tales of the Great War that ended the human age. No one truly knew what had happened to them, only that one day, all human worlds went dark. Some said they destroyed themselves. Others said they left. But everyone agreed on one thing: humanity had been the most dangerous species to ever exist. Finally, Ka-Rel spoke. If the council hears this, they'll panic. They'll attack the moment they see the fleet. But Captain, Jory said, if we don't tell them, we might be the first to die when those ships arrive. Ka-Rel stared at the screens, thinking. The ships were moving slowly, but with clear purpose. We wait, he said. We need to understand what they want. Hours passed. The fleet continued to awaken. The alien ship scanners picked up transmissions, encrypted human codes bouncing between vessels. One message repeated again and again. Return protocol active. Restore command. Await confirmation. Ka-Rel frowned. Await confirmation from what? No one knew. Then the energy readings from the planet below began to rise. The giant engine, the one still burning after 500,000 years, roared louder. Its flames turned white-blue. A pulse of light shot upward into space again, brighter than before. The alien crew shielded their eyes. The computer reported, energy surge detected. Beacon now transmitting full command signal. The Ghost Fleet is responding. Ka-Rel's heart pounded. It's calling them here. The galaxy's old fears came alive again. Across many worlds, alien governments received the same warning: human signal detected. Panic spread. Fleets were prepared, weapons powered, and old war laws reactivated. To them, humanity's return meant the end. But not all shared that fear. Some scholars believed humans had never meant to destroy anyone. They believed the humans were builders, explorers, and protectors, until war forced them to become something else. Ka-Rel remembered those stories. He looked at the burning planet and whispered, maybe they weren't monsters. Maybe they were guardians. But even as he said it, the Ghost Fleet kept moving. In a distant system, a small alien outpost picked up a transmission from one of the ancient ships. The voice that came through was calm, mechanical, and human. This is the Ghost Fleet. Identification required. Are there survivors? The outpost commander froze. Survivors, he whispered. They think humans are still alive. When the commander didn't reply, the transmission repeated, this time with a sharper tone. Are there survivors? The commander finally answered. No. Humanity is gone. You are the only ones left. There was a long pause. Then the human AI spoke again, voice heavy with something almost like grief. Then we will keep their promise. The engines must never die. The transmission ended, and the outpost sensors showed the fleet changing direction, heading toward the planet Ka-Rel had discovered. On the alien ship, the tension grew. Jory turned to Ka-Rel. Captain, that fleet will reach us in less than 2 days. We need to leave. Ka-Rel shook his head. No. We stay and see what happens. If we run, we'll only make them think we are enemies. The crew was afraid, but they obeyed. They continued to watch as the sky above the planet began to glow with distant lights, hundreds of ships entering the system, silent and perfect in their movement. As they drew closer, Ka-Rel finally saw them through the viewing window, giant shapes of black metal, their hulls shining faintly under the planet's dying sun. The air trembled as the first of them entered orbit. No one spoke. The Ghost Fleet had arrived. In the darkness of the bridge, Ka-Rel's voice was barely a whisper. 500,000 years later, he said, and their engines still burn. Jory looked at him with fear and awe mixed together. What do you think they want? Ka-Rel's eyes stayed on the window, watching the ancient ships take their places in the sky like old gods returning home. I think, he said quietly, they want to find whoever lit the fire again. The Ghost Fleet hung above the planet like a storm frozen in the sky. Hundreds of ships, silent and massive, drifted in perfect formation. Their engines burned with steady light, casting long shadows across the surface below. From Ka-Rel's ship, the view was terrifying and beautiful. Each vessel looked older than time itself, yet every one of them moved with purpose, like they were following orders from a voice that only they could hear. Ka-Rel stood at the viewing window, unable to look away. They are waiting, he said quietly. But for what? No one answered. The crew worked in silence, afraid that even their voices might draw attention from the ancient fleet. Then the ship's scanner beeped. The technician looked up, confused. "Captain, we are picking up a strange signal from the surface. It's coming from beneath the burning engine." K.A. frowned. "Another machine?" "Not exactly," the technician said. "The readings look biological." For a moment, no one moved. Biological? On a world dead for 500,000 years? K.A.'s pulse quickened. "Prepare a landing team," he said. "We're going back down." The others stared at him like he'd lost his mind. "Sir, those ships," Jory began, but K.A. cut him off. "If something is alive down there, it might explain everything. Move." Minutes later, their shuttle dropped through the clouds and touched down near the giant burning engine. The ground glowed faintly red from the endless heat. They moved toward the ruins where the console had been found. The entrance was still open, and the hum of power was stronger now. Inside, the walls vibrated softly as if the ship itself had a heartbeat. Deeper in the chamber, K.A. saw a faint blue light shining through the dust. He stepped closer and froze. It wasn't a machine, it was a cryopod. A human one. The glass was cracked but not broken. Inside lay a man, motionless, his skin pale as ice. The display beside the pod still flickered weakly, showing life signs, faint but real. Jory's voice shook. "That's impossible. A human can't survive this long." K.A. placed his hand against the glass. The skin beneath looked real, not decayed, not gone. He could almost see the man breathing. "He's alive," K.A. said. 500,000 years later, and he's still alive. The pod made a low sound, a warning tone. The display changed, revival process initiated. The lights brightened. K.A. stepped back. "It's starting." Steam hissed out as the chamber warmed. The man inside twitched, his fingers moving slightly. Then his eyes opened, bright green, filled with confusion and pain. He gasped, his first breath in ages echoing through the chamber. K.A. and his team stood frozen. The man looked around, trying to speak. His voice was rough and broken. "How long was I asleep?" K.A. hesitated. "You have been asleep for 500,000 years." The man's face changed. Shock, disbelief, then silence. 500,000 years, he whispered. "That can't be right." He tried to stand, but his legs trembled. K.A. quickly stepped forward and helped him. "Easy," he said. "You're safe for now." The man looked at him carefully. "You're not human," he said slowly. K.A. shook his head. "No. My name is K.A. We found your ship. We found the beacon. We didn't mean to wake you." The man stared at him for a long moment, then asked, "The engines? Are they still burning?" K.A. nodded. "Yes. After all this time, they never stopped." The human closed his eyes, a small, sad smile forming on his face. "Good," he said softly. "Then humanity kept its promise." K.A. didn't understand. "What promise?" The man looked up, his eyes distant. "The promise of the fire. When everything was falling apart, we swore that our engines would never die. That as long as one still burned, humanity would live on, even if our bodies didn't." He moved toward the console and placed his hand on it. Instantly, it lit up, brighter than before. The alien crew backed away as the chamber filled with sound. The man spoke again, voice firm now. "This is Captain Elias Ward of the Sol Defense Force. Return protocol activated." K.A.'s translator struggled to keep up. "What did you just do?" The man looked at him. "I called them home." Outside, in orbit, the Ghost fleet suddenly changed formation. Their engines flared bright blue. The ships aligned themselves into precise patterns: defense, communication, and recovery. The sky above the planet filled with motion. K.A.'s comms officer shouted over the radio, "Captain, the fleet is responding. They're all locking onto the planet's coordinates." Elias looked up through the cracked ceiling at the faint light above. "They heard me." K.A. could barely speak. You're controlling them." Not controlling, Elias said. Commanding. They were built to protect humanity, to wait for our return. Now they think it's time. Karel frowned. But there are no humans left. They'll look for people who don't exist. Elias turned to him. Then maybe they'll protect the ones who woke me instead. Before Karel could reply, the ground shook. The massive engine outside roared again, louder than ever. The entire planet trembled. Elias steadied himself and smiled faintly. 500,000 years, he said. And they still answer the call. Karel stared at him, part awe, part fear. What are you planning to do? Elias looked toward the horizon, where the first of the Ghost Fleet ships was descending. I'm going to finish what we started. Humanity built these ships to guard the stars, not to destroy them. It's time they remembered that. Karel's voice was quiet. And if the others out there attack you first? Elias glanced back at him, eyes cold and calm. Then they'll learn what it means when the engines burn. Outside, the sky filled with light. The Ghost Fleet was coming home. The Ghost Fleet filled the sky like a living storm. Their engines burned brighter than any sun, casting silver light across the barren planet. The air trembled, thick with power. From the command chamber deep beneath the surface, Karel and Elias watched through the holographic display as hundreds of human warships took position above them. It was a sight that belonged to legends, ships older than any living empire, rising once again. Elias stood tall, the faint blue glow of the console lighting his tired face. They heard the call, he said softly. The return protocol has begun. Karel turned to him. What is this protocol? What are they doing? Elias didn't answer immediately. His eyes followed the display as the ships linked together with laser-thin communication beams. When humanity fell, he said slowly, we built something that would outlast us. The fleets were told to sleep until they heard the signal, until someone reignited the fire. That signal means one thing. It's time to come home. Karel frowned. But there is no home left. Earth is gone, your colonies are dust. What are they returning to? Elias placed his hand on the console. To each other. To life. To purpose. Before Karel could reply, the ship's systems began to hum again. Symbols flashed across the screens, human code, ancient and complex. The air shimmered with static as energy surged through the planet's buried structures. Karel's communicator buzzed. His officer's voice came through, tight with fear. Captain, the fleet is reactivating something beneath the planet's surface. Massive energy readings. It looks like a command network. Elias nodded. They're rebuilding the core. The system that once connected every human ship, every station, every defense unit. Once it's complete, the entire network will move as one. Karel stepped forward. You're waking up an army, Elias. The other civilizations will see this as a threat. The humans' face hardened. They always did. Above them, the first ships of the Ghost Fleet shifted. Massive carriers opened their hangars, releasing smaller crafts that spread like sparks across the sky. The fleet wasn't attacking. They were building, connecting energy lines, setting up orbital defenses, restoring old stations that had been dead for millennia. They're rebuilding their world, Karel whispered. Elias smiled faintly. Not a world. A promise. Then his expression changed as new data flashed before him. He leaned closer. The signal's spreading faster than I expected. Karel looked confused. Spreading where? To every corner of the old human network, Elias said. Every AI, every drone, every ship that still exists, they're all coming here. Karel's crew above the surface watched in silence as the map of the galaxy filled with movement. Tiny points of light, old ships drifting for ages, were turning, aligning, heading toward the same destination. But elsewhere, fear was growing. Across alien territories, warning systems screamed of massive energy spikes. Governments called emergency meetings. Some saw opportunity, others saw the end. The Galactic Council declared a code red, human technology has reactivated. Containment recommended. All fleets prepare for defense. Soon, the first alien armadas began to move. Inside the buried chamber, K.A.Rel's communicator beeped again. "Captain," his officer said, voice shaking, "the Council fleet is on its way. They believe we're under attack." Elias turned sharply. "They can't attack. The fleet will defend itself." K.A.Rel's eyes widened. "Defend itself? You mean?" "If they fire first," Elias said grimly, "the defense protocols will activate. They'll fight back. The fleet is programmed to protect." K.A.Rel took a deep breath. "You have to stop it. If there's a battle here, no one will survive." Elias looked at the console, his face heavy with conflict. "You don't understand. These ships were built to defend humanity. They won't harm unless provoked. But if they see an enemy—" He didn't finish the sentence. Moments later, the ground shook again. The skies turned red as alien fleets dropped out of warp. Dozens of ships appeared in orbit, weapons charged, engines burning. The air above the planet flashed with light as warning signals crossed the stars. K.A.Rel looked up, terrified. "They're preparing to fire." Elias's eyes went cold. "Then we need to talk fast." He opened a direct channel. His voice carried across space, calm and strong. "This is Captain Elias Ward of the Sol Defense Force. Stand down. This is not an invasion. The return protocol is defensive. We mean no harm." No response. K.A.Rel's communicator buzzed again. "The Council doesn't believe you, Captain. They think you control the fleet." Elias slammed his hand against the console. "They never learn." A bright light exploded across the sky. The first alien missile hit one of the Ghost Fleet ships. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the old warship's shields flared, and a single pulse of energy shot out in return, not to destroy, but to disable. The alien ship went dark instantly, its power systems shut down without damage. K.A.Rel stared in shock. It disabled them without killing anyone. Elias nodded. They were built to protect, not to conquer. But the rest of the alien fleet didn't stop. More weapons fired. The sky turned white. The Ghost Fleet responded, not with fire, but with walls of light, massive shields spreading like wings across the atmosphere. Every impact bent away harmlessly. From the surface, it looked like the planet was covered in a glowing dome. Elias turned to K.A.Rel. "Now they're fully awake." K.A.Rel looked at him, unsure whether to feel fear or awe. "What happens next?" Elias's voice was steady. "Now they remember what they were made for. To defend life. To keep the fire alive." Above them, the fleet began to move again, not to attack, but to push back the alien armada, creating a barrier around the planet. The alien fleets realized too late that they were facing something far beyond their power. In the middle of that light and chaos, Elias spoke quietly, more to himself than to anyone else. 500,000 years, and they still protect. Humanity's fire never died. It only waited. K.A.Rel looked up at the glowing sky and whispered, "Then maybe it was never just your fire. Maybe it's ours now too." Elias gave a small, tired smile. "Then keep it burning." Outside, the engines of the Ghost Fleet flared once more, brighter than ever, as the ships prepared for what was coming next. The galaxy was watching, and history was about to wake again. The battle began as a whisper and turned into a storm. The alien fleets surrounded the planet, their weapons glowing like distant suns. The Ghost Fleet held its formation, silent and unbroken, each ship burning with cold blue light. Between them, energy shields shimmered like waves across the sky. The air crackled with tension, and even from the surface, K.A.Rel could feel the vibration in his chest. Inside the ancient chamber, Elias Ward stood over the console, his hand hovering above the glowing controls. K.A.Rel watched him closely. "They'll destroy each other," he said. "You have to stop this." Elias shook his head. "They fired first. The fleet can't be stopped now. It's following its prime code, defend the beacon, defend the living." K.A.Rel's voice grew sharper. "But they're defending you. You're the beacon." Elias turned to him. "No. The fire is the beacon. Humanity's will to survive. That's what they're protecting." Above them, the first real strike came. A swarm of alien missiles cut through the sky, lighting up the atmosphere with trails of fire. The Ghost Fleet responded instantly. Beams of white energy sliced through the void, not to destroy but to intercept. The explosions filled the night, silent flashes seen from every horizon. The alien fleets grew desperate. They launched heavier weapons, planet breakers designed to end wars. But the Ghost Fleet adapted. The largest ships moved into position, forming a shield wall around the planet. When the planet breakers hit, the shockwaves turned the sky into a sea of light. Yet when the brightness faded, the shields still held. KRL's crew aboard their ship watched in awe. "They're not attacking," one whispered. "They're protecting everything." Inside the chamber, Elias was pale, sweat running down his face. "They're pushing their limits," he said. "They can't hold forever." KRL stepped closer. "Then shut them down before they die." Elias stared at him. "Would you shut down your soldiers while they were protecting their home?" KRL didn't answer. The ground trembled as another wave of explosions echoed in the distance. Elias adjusted the controls, sending a signal into orbit. "Hold position," he said. His voice was calm, but the console lights flickered with strain. Up in space, the Ghost Fleet responded. A single ship, Eidolon, broke formation and moved forward. Its massive cannons glowed for the first time in centuries. But instead of firing at the aliens, it fired into empty space, releasing a pulse of light that spread across the battlefield. Every ship, alien and human alike, froze for a moment. Their sensors went blind. Then a voice echoed through every channel, calm and human. "This is Captain Elias Ward of the Soul Defense Force. Humanity does not seek war. We remember what destruction brings. Stand down or you will force the fleet to end this the only way it knows how." The message repeated across every ship in the system. Many of the alien commanders hesitated. The stories about humans, about the old wars, the burning worlds, came rushing back to them. Some began to retreat. Others refused. The Council Fleet leader replied, voice trembling with anger. "You are a weapon from a dead race. You have no authority here." Elias looked at KRL. "So it always comes to this." The alien fleets fired again. This time, the Ghost Fleet answered. Dozens of human ships shifted position with machine precision. Energy arcs linked them together like veins of lightning. The sky lit up as they unleashed a blinding pulse, not fire, not destruction, but an electromagnetic wave that shut down every weapon, every reactor, every engine in the enemy fleet. In seconds, the entire battlefield went dark. No sound. No light. Just silence and the faint hum of the Ghost Fleet. KRL stared upward, speechless. They disabled them all. Elias exhaled slowly. "No one dies today." Then the console flashed red. A warning message scrolled across the screen. "Core overload imminent. Return protocol unstable." KRL leaned over. "What's happening?" "The fleet's energy systems are linked through the beacon," Elias said. "They weren't built for this kind of strain. If the overload continues, they'll burn out, all of them." KRL's voice rose. "You'll lose everything you woke." Elias nodded. "I know." He began typing commands, his hands shaking. "If I cut the link, the fleet will go back to sleep. But the beacon, and me, will be destroyed." KRL grabbed his arm. "There has to be another way." Elias smiled faintly. 500,000 years ago, I made a promise. We all did. If one of us ever woke again, we'd make sure the fire kept burning. Even if it meant giving up everything." He pressed his palm to the console. The light around him brightened, wrapping him in white fire. The machines responded instantly. One by one, the Ghost Fleet's engines dimmed. Their shields lowered. The light faded from their hulls. KRL shouted, "Elias, stop!" But it was too late. The human turned to him, calm and peaceful. "Tell them we didn't die in war. We lived in hope." With a final pulse of light, the console exploded in brilliance. The entire planet shuddered, and then, silence. In orbit, the alien ships floated powerless and unharmed. The Ghost Fleet, once burning bright, now drifted quietly, engines dark. The battle was over. On the surface, KRL opened his eyes slowly. The chamber was filled with smoke and dust. The console was dead. Elias was gone. Only a faint burn mark remained where he had stood. KRL looked toward the ceiling, where the faint glow of the sky filtered through the cracks. "He saved everyone," he whispered. Above, the Ghost Fleet began to drift into new formations. Without orders, without a commander, they formed a ring around the planet, silent guardians in the dark. KRL climbed to the surface and looked up at the quiet stars. The massive ships hung there, their engines faintly flickering, as if still breathing. "They are waiting," Jory said beside him. KRL nodded. "Yes. Waiting for the next fire." The wind moved across the ruins, carrying the smell of smoke and dust. The battle was over, but the story of humanity was not. Their machines still watched, still guarded, still remembered. In the distance, one faint light blinked from a ship, the Eidolon. A final message appeared on KRL's wrist console. "The fire is yours now. Keep it alive." KRL looked to the stars and whispered, "I will." And high above, the engines of the Ghost Fleet glowed once more, soft, steady, eternal. The stars above were quiet now, no fire, no thunder, no war. Just the silent glow of the Ghost Fleet drifting like ancient sentinels across the darkness. Weeks had passed since the battle ended, yet the memory of that light still burned in every living soul who had witnessed it. The galaxy was changed forever. KRL stood at the edge of the crater where the chamber had once been. The ground was still scarred, and the wind carried the faint hum of dormant energy. He closed his eyes, hearing Elias's last words in his mind, "Keep it alive." Jory walked up beside him, her boots crunching against the dust. "Council fleets have withdrawn," she said. "They've declared this system restricted. No one is allowed near it again." KRL looked at her. "And yet we're still here." She smiled faintly. "Someone has to watch the watchers." They both looked up. The ships hung above the planet, motionless but not dead. Their engines pulsed faintly, like slow heartbeats. Every few minutes, a single flicker passed from one ship to another, a wave of blue light, soft and steady. "Still alive," Jory whispered. KRL nodded. "They're waiting for something." Waiting for what? He looked toward the horizon, where the ruins of the old human facility stood half buried in sand. "For us to understand." That night, KRL returned to the site where Elias had vanished. The air there still shimmered faintly, as if a piece of the man's spirit remained. He activated his wrist console and scanned the area. A low pulse answered him, not human, not machine, but something in between. He frowned. That shouldn't be possible. The console flickered, and then a familiar voice echoed softly. "Captain KRL." KRL froze. "Elias." The voice was faint, digital, fading in and out. "Part of me remains. I am integrated into the core. The fleet needed a mind to guide it until the next fire awakens." KRL stepped closer to the console. "You're alive." "Not as I was," the voice replied gently, "but alive enough to watch, to remember, to protect." KRL's throat tightened. "The galaxy is afraid of what you left behind. They think humanity is reborn." There was a soft pause. Humanity was never gone, KRL. Every act of courage, every spark of hope, that's us. You carry it now. KRL looked up at the stars, his voice quiet. "Then what do I do?" Elias's voice answered like a whisper in the wind. "Build. Learn. Pass it forward. The engines still burn, but the fire belongs to those who believe." The signal faded, and the console went silent. But KRL knew what he had to do. Days turned into months. The site became a refuge for scientists, explorers, and dreamers. Together, they studied the ancient technology and began rebuilding, not for war, but for knowledge. The Ghost Fleet stayed above them, silent guardians that seemed to approve of their work. The Galactic Council eventually lifted the restriction. The story of the Ghost Fleet spread across the stars, a story of a species that had lived, died, and yet refused to vanish. Many came to see it, not as a weapon, but as a symbol. One evening, as KRL walked through the rebuilt station, Jory called out to him. "Message from the outer systems," she said. A small colony just sent us this. Karel opened the transmission. It was a simple image, a ship built in the human style, bearing an old symbol, a burning sun. Under it were the words, "For those who keep the fire." He smiled. It's spreading. Jory looked at the ghost fleet above. Do you think they know? Karel nodded. They always know. That night, as the twin moons rose, a single ship from the ghost fleet broke formation. It drifted lower, descending slowly through the clouds until it hovered above the station. Its hull shimmered like silver glass. Karel stood outside as it settled in orbit. He could feel the heat of its engines, soft, alive. From its underbelly, a beam of light descended, forming a glowing pillar that touched the ground. Within the light, words appeared in the ancient human tongue. We remember. Karel felt tears in his eyes. And we will not forget. The beam faded, and the ship returned to its place among the stars. The message remained, glowing faintly on the surface, a promise carved in light. Generations later, the story of Elias Ward and the Ghost Fleet became legend, the tale of the humans who refused to die, whose fire still burned across the stars. And though the centuries passed, the fleet remained. Sometimes, when a new colony faced darkness, a light would appear in their sky, a faint blue glow, moving slowly between the stars. And those who saw it knew the truth. The engines still burned. Not for war. Not for power. But for hope. And as long as even one being remembered what Elias had said, the fire is yours now. Keep it alive. The galaxy would never truly fall into darkness again.